Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Dr. Samori Swygert, and today I'm just going to be talking about the relevance and significance of HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities. I want to get right into it. It's interesting because people always ask, or the question always buoys to the top and resurfaces, are HBCUs still relevant? And my answer is an emphatic yes. What you will typically hear is people say, well, slavery is over, the Reconstruction period is over, Jim Crow is over, the Civil Rights era is over, diversity is here, so why do you need an HBCU? When you graduate from an HBCU, you should know that the whole world is not African American, the whole world is not black. And they are correct in their analysis. That's right, the whole world is not African American. But my retort, my reply typically is that why is this question not posed to other institutions of learning and higher learning? Because there are other schools, high schools and colleges, universities that are specific towards their social demographics. Like in New York, you have the Keio Academy for Japanese students. You have Brigham Young University, which facilitates the learning for students that follow the faith and practice of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You have Notre Dame and the Catholic University of America, which is founded with Catholic principles. You have yeshivas for people that follow the Jewish faith. You have Randolph-Macon College and scores of other colleges that are all female. Now, Randolph-Macon is now co-ed. That just happened, I think, around 2006 or 2005, something close to that time period. But you have scores of all-female colleges. And then you also have the Harvey Milk and the Alliance High Schools in New York City that facilitate education. Is specifically designed to facilitate the educational environment for the LGBT community. They do not restrict or exclude individuals that are heterosexual that would like to attend the school, but is specifically designed for the facilitation of education for the LGBT community. So my question often is, well, you say that when you graduate from the HBCU, you should know that the world is not all black. And my thing is, do you say that to individuals that attend the Keio Academy? Do you tell them that the whole world is not Japanese when they graduate? Do you tell students at Brigham Young University that the whole world is not followers of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Do you tell graduates of Notre Dame and the Catholic University of America that when you graduate, the whole world is not Catholic, so you shouldn't attend Notre Dame and the Catholic University? Do you tell students that practice the Jewish faith that they shouldn't attend yeshivas because the whole world is not Jewish? Or do you tell women that attend Randolph-Macon, well, it doesn't apply now because they're co-ed, but there's still scores of other all-female colleges that they shouldn't attend these colleges because the whole world is not of the female gender? And do you go to the Harvey Milk and Alliance Public High School and tell students that they shouldn't attend these high schools because the whole world is not LGBT? That does not happen. So I find it kind of ironic that people make it a point to tell African Americans that we should pretty much divorce from HBCUs because the whole world is not black. So that's one point. There are a few other points that I want to address when it comes to the relevance and significance of HBCUs. And the other point is this. HBCUs foster a positive historical identity. And you can talk to any educational psychologist and they will tell you the significance and importance of having a positive historical identity when it comes to an educational process, because it's how you relate. There's a frame of reference. There's a reference point. There's always that if somebody has done it, then I can do it, right? So when you know that somebody has come before you, there's a predecessor, there's an ancestor that has made some achievements, you now have a benchmark to gauge your progress and performance on. There's a blueprint, there's a template that has been laid down, a foundation. And it's very important for African Americans to have that, to see that. When you look at the schools that are closing all across the country, and when you examine the curriculums and syllabus, African American contributions and African American history courses are absent, they're dwindling, and it begs the question of, well, where are our students going to learn about their culture, their heritage, and their legacy? Yes, they can get it from their parents, but why shouldn't they also get it in the education process, just like some of the other institutions that I talked about? And so the other thing when you think about is when you talk about non-HBCUs and predominantly white institutions, there are so many different examples and symbols of success that white Americans can always look back on as a form of mental, moral, emotional support when they when they pursue education. They can always look at a frame of reference. Like you can always hear about Lincoln Center, or think about Columbus Circle, or the Kennedy Space Center, or George Washington University, or Columbus Circle, Carnegie Hall, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Ford Foundation, Albert Einstein College of Medicine. See, when you see these names and you hear these names, you automatically associate it and affiliate it with these people that have done great things and their prominence. And so it motivates the young white student to say, hey, you know, I have these predecessors and ancestors that have achieved greatness. I can do it. There's no excuse for me. And so HBCUs, we do the same thing. So you're going to hear about Percy Julian, George Washington Carver, Charles Drew. These individuals and hundreds of others that I can't even go into, they have achieved greatness, and their presence and their prominence is going to be pronounced and emphasized on an HBCU college campus. You cannot say that there's going to be that overwhelming presence of historical African Americans that have contributed heavily to society on non-HBCU campuses. When I was a freshman at Hampton University, whenever I looked out my window, there was Moton Hall, named after Robert Russell Moton, and he was a very good educator and author. When I went, in summer of '96, I attended Hampton's pre-college program, and I stayed in L. Douglas Wilder Hall, named after Lawrence Douglas Wilder, who was the first governor of Virginia, and African-American governor of Virginia, and the first African-American governor in the United States after Reconstruction. My sophomore year, I stayed in Marshall Hall, named after Thurgood Marshall, Supreme Court Justice. And then we also have the Honors Dorm, Du Bois Hall, named after W.B. Du Bois. And so these are reminders, physical reminders of greatness. And so when you see these landmarks and these statues and these dormitories and offices and buildings that are named after prominent African Americans, it lets you know that you can do it. It's achievable, and the fact that they were able to make such achievements and greatness under harsher conditions, it lets you know that you can definitely achieve it now when there's a little less harsh conditions and less violent environment publicly, I guess you could say. There's no excuse. So that's another thing. I also want to talk about the fact that you will make a significant number of bonds with African Americans that will go on to be professionals. Hundreds. I can go down a Facebook timeline of contacts, my email contacts, and it will be flooded with young African Americans and even older African Americans that I've made connections with that are doing very well for themselves in their profession. And so what HBCUs do is they facilitate the matriculation of young students, then graduate them, and now you have African Americans that are professional in the professional arena that I can tap on at any given moment in any arena, whether I need legal counsel or consult on a matter. If I don't have kids now, but God willing, I'm blessed with some in the future. If my child needs braces or cleaning or cavities removed, fillings, I know dentists that graduate from Meharry School of Dentistry or Howard School of Dentistry that are African American. I can go get a physical from an African American medical doctor. There's so many ways that HBCU connection facilitates black economic growth. Because when I go see that dentist and that black medical doctor or that black lawyer, and I'm paying him in cash, that cash is going into his pocket, into the African American household. We're constantly recycling and circling that money, that currency, throughout the community. So that's a big part, and the reason why HBCUs are very significant. And if you were to go to a non-HBCU or predominantly white institution, just on sheer numbers and statistics, there are more African Americans at HBCUs than there are on predominantly white campuses. So numbers wise, you're going to make more relationships with African Americans professionals that are going to be professionals. There's some other things I want to touch on. And the other thing is this: education is an investment. So when you think about family planning, mothers and fathers get together and they set aside portions of their budget for college tuition and savings. You think about people that are taking out student loans. Where's that money going? Are you putting that money inside an institution that is vested in the interest? They're committed, they're dedicated to the interests of African Americans and seeing that African Americans are going to get an education. I make this statement because if you look at what's currently happening with UNC Chapel Hill, they actually have, a situation in which they want to rename or name a dorm after William Saunders, who was a Klansman. How would it make you feel knowing that you've saved up thousands of dollars over the years to send your child to a school that in 2015 they're debating on whether they can or cannot name a dorm after a Klansman? At an HBCU, we will not be naming a dormitory or a statue or any landmark after a Klansman. It's contradictory towards our academic excellence and our culture. So that's another thing. The other thing I would like to touch on is the fact that schools, universities, they are microcosms of the macrocosm of society. And so society is filled with various layers, various strata. You know, we talk about classism, racism, gender, religion. So when you're trying to facilitate the educational process, the learning process, it is more conducive when you can remove all these different barriers and impediments of learning, so that there's like a clear slate for a child to learn, for a student to learn. If you can strip away the racial or racist component, I believe that is a good way of facilitating the learning process. And why do I say that? When you think about what happened with the student that was in the SAE fraternity that was chanting on the bus, lynch a N-word, how would you feel knowing as a student or as a parent that your child is in a dormitory, in a cafeteria, in a classroom next to a student that is saying something like that, lynch a N-word? I don't think that's going to facilitate, and it's not positive. It's not a comfortable, conducive environment for learning to occur. You also think about, like in Duke, they found a noose hanging on campus. They found the person that did it and kicked him out. They never disclosed who it was, but a noose hanging on a tree. You also had Jerry Hugh, who was a professor at Duke University, who was basically saying that African Americans are lazy and that we have these weird names and don't want to integrate. So how would I feel as a student or a parent knowing that my child is in a classroom with a teacher that has these condescending thoughts about my child? My money is going there, my hard work, where I get paid, and my salary that I set aside. This is what I'm sending my child to. At an HBCU, you have African American teachers there. I say a higher abundance because you do have African American teachers at non-HBCU institutions. You have some good ones too, like Cornell West. But when you have an African American teacher, they are more likely to culturally identify with you, and so they may have just an innate vested interest in you, where they can see themselves in you, when they were a young student, or they may look at you as their son, their daughter, their niece, their nephew. And so there's a more intimate educational bond that develops and exists there, as opposed to a lot of non-HBCU institutions that may just look at you as just a number. I don't want to be considered a number when I'm trying to get my education. There were some other things I want to talk about where we talk about the bonding. See, when you go to a non-HBCU, it may be awkward when you're like one of few people on campus when it comes to demographics. You think about the founding of Black Greek letter organizations. So you think about like Alpha Phi Alpha, Ithaca, New York, Cornell University. It was really founded because of the fact that there was no real support, academic support, emotional support. There was no camaraderie among the students there when you think about African American presence on Cornell University, 1906, 1905, and back. Where was the camaraderie? No, they had to form this. It was almost a survival mechanism to get that camaraderie, to get that support, so they could sustain themselves while they were getting their degree. So that's something that you don't have to worry about at an HBCU. You can go to school and you can relate to people that of the same ethnic group. So that's a big thing. And there was something else that I wanted to talk about before I closed out, which is this. We make too much of a fuss when we talk about legitimacy of education. What school did you go to? What degree did you have? Okay, so why should we allow society or a chosen faction of society to dictate who has the best education? Whose degree is more worthy? That's a very big disservice, because what we're saying is we are discriminating. We are not acknowledging the parts of society that make up the whole of America. We're saying some parts are insignificant and some parts are more significant. Education in general, everybody should have it, and it should be equal. There should be no... If education was like that, it just would not be a need for HBCUs or anything else like that. So it speaks volumes to the disparities in America, historically and presently. So these are just some thoughts that I had about HBCUs, why they're relevant to today. And my name is Dr. Samori Swygert, and I graduated from Hampton University and Howard University. Have a great day. Thank you.